All right, hello. To start with, there is some room up here. If anyone, I know it's kind of comfortable hiding in the back, but there's a chair here. You're welcome to sit in these chairs or anywhere up here if you'd like to. Check, check, you can hear me, right? There's nothing worse than being on stage and walking off and finding out that no one can hear you. It's not usually a problem for drummers, but it does happen. So if for some reason my voice disappears or if I'm too loud, please just, wave your hands, yell, say something. I'm usually a behind-the-scenes person. I'm more comfortable behind the soundboard or doing what Sydney's doing. But I do think that everyone should take their turn in every position in, setting up an event, whether it's flyering or being on stage, cleaning up afterwards. And I've definitely done those other parts, so I'm giving it a try on stage. Because I'm a behind-the-scene person, I'm going to do my own intro tonight and allow me to welcome you as if I, feel at home here, even though it's your home and not mine. Make yourself at ease if you can. If you have some troubles that you brought in with you, nothing you can really do about that, but sometimes try to shake them off, try to leave them at the door, try to set them aside if you can. If you have devices, please turn them off. If you need to check your email, just do it in an hour. Just for now, let's have it me and you and each other. Say hi to your neighbors if you'd like. Keep it in the room. Let's be a little elitist and, let everyone feel like they're missing out on something. They had to come if they're going to enjoy it. And whatever you do, don't point your phone at me, please. I left mine at home for a reason, and I'm from Berkeley. It's sort of a strange culture there. We don't like photos. We don't use last names. We talk in a hushed tone. There's a lot of drug dealing and political activism, and just a sense of there's a particular sense of privacy there that's a little bit weird, but I ask you to respect it anyway and try to make it cool, and to make up for the lack of sort of extra stimulus and flashing lights, I have brought a bunch of cool stuff to give away to make the trip a little easier for you. I'm going to tell some stories. I'm going to read some old mail. I'll answer questions later if you have any. And I will give away some cool stuff, and we'll start with that. Okay, so somehow I've only been in Denver once before. I don't know how it happened that I was on a lot of tours. They just missed Denver. I traveled a lot, and somehow I just never passed through here, except one time. It was 1990, the first Green Day tour. I was the roadie, and we came to Denver, and we played a show, and, I think most people have this feeling that they missed out. You missed out on everything, missed out on whatever. If you missed that show, you didn't miss anything. It wasn't that great. It was the one thing from the old days that just wasn't that great. First tours are like that. Tours are like that in general. It was, we came to Denver. They played. People did not move. People did not care. It just happens sometimes. But it doesn't, nothing personal. But the only thing that was memorable about the show was the first band. Does anyone know what the first band was? It was a straight edge band. 1990, Denver, opening for Green Day. What? No, but good guess. You never know. Well, they gave me a copy of their demo, and I am here to give it back. I had it for 28 years, and I'm done with it. The band is full count, but there is a catch. I used the full count demo to record Green Day from the soundboard that night. I know, kind of rude. Now, this has never been released. It has never been copied. It has never been listened to until a month ago. You think, you're going to get around to these things, and it just 30 years passes. So, first of all, is there a member of Full Count in the audience? No? All right. Well, I have taped pieces of paper underneath 4 chairs. If you look under your chair, 4 of you should have a little piece of paper with a star on it. There's only 4. I know that's not many. All right, there's 1, there's 2. Check your chair. All right, someone sitting on them. Okay, how many we got? You got one? Okay, so there's 3 of you. That's it. Okay, so think of a number between 1 and 100. The 3 of you. You ready? What do you got?
69. 66. 43.
You got it. It was 99. Wow. Wait. Promise me you won't sell it.
I won't sell it.
All right. Here you go. Pass it on back. Full count, ladies and gentlemen. So, I lectured last year at a museum in Moscow. It was very cool, a very unusual opportunity. They were doing a retrospective of Rabin Pettibone, and it was in Gorky Park. I'd never been to Russia. It was, right in the middle of this beautiful park in Moscow, and they needed someone to talk about underground culture in America and California punk and put it into perspective, and that was something that I could do. You're like, there's not much you can put on a resume, and I was like, this I am uniquely qualified to do. I can do it. So I did it. I laid it all out, and it's kind of weird to explain. It's like explaining something to your grandmother or whatever. It's to try to really capture the sense of what something is to someone from a completely different set of experiences and references is difficult. So, I painted the whole picture, and then as soon as it was done, there was a hand shot up from the front row, a young Russian guy, and he had a burning question. He said, "What's wrong with the mainstream? What do you have against the mainstream?" So, I'm just going to get that out of the way up front now. Well, I told the Russian guy, I said, well, when you break your leg, it wasn't a threat. You got to be careful saying it in Russia. But it was like, when you break your leg, go to the mainstream and ask them to do a benefit show for you. See if the mainstream will put out a benefit album to help you pay your hospital pills. It's not going to happen. But in Berkeley, where I'm from originally, we have a place. It's called Gilman Street. Many of you have heard of it. It's well known for its shows, but it's less well known for all of the other things that have happened there. There have been films there, plays, there's NA meetings, there's AA meetings, there's been wakes, there's been weddings, and I'm pretty sure that when I die, they will let my friends have a funeral service at Gilman. This isn't morbid. This is the one thing we can all count on. You're going to need a place to go die. Well, we got one. And that's a huge relief to me. Because when you're in a crisis, when you're broke, when something goes wrong, you need you don't want to have to cross into someone other space where you're not comfortable. You don't want to have to bankrupt yourself paying the bills. And you don't want your friends to have to gather in a place that to mourn you or to celebrate you that's awkward and that's alien. So this is, so we have a place. We have a place to go when you're hurt, when you're in love, or when you die. It serves as like a Grange Hall or a community center. And I think it's extremely important that we have these spaces. Now, I've only been here a few days, but I know some of your friends learned to make beer. They have a place. It's called Ratio. You can go there to drink beer. They provide jobs. The money stays in the community somewhat. If you like coffee, you like books, you can go to Kilgore, you can go here. Now, not only are these places somewhere to sit and drink coffee or drink beer, but they're just places, just by having these places that are ours, that we feel comfortable in, it's extremely important because the mainstream does not provide that. And it is not, we have to provide that for ourselves, and we have to strengthen them as much as we can. And, well, that's my point. It's just that just to have places that in a crisis you can gather, and places, that it's nice if you have a place for bands to play, partly because when the other things happen, we also just have a place. The places are the most important thing, and I just think we should be grateful for them, but we should try to strengthen them. We should put as much money, if these are the places that are going to be there for us, this is where our money should go. This is where our energy should go. It doesn't mean that you can't, go buy a Britney Spears record or whatever. You can do whatever you want in the mainstream. You can go see the movies. But if the underground is going to be there, the only thing that's going to be there for us, then that's where our main focus should always be. So I'm going to tell some stories as well. When I thought about coming here tonight, if I do a reading, it's mostly reading. But I realized there was a few things that I wanted to discuss. And I know it seems like oh, this guy, it's kind of a drag. He's real serious. It's not like the comedy hour. But it's not so serious or so self-righteous. I just think it's like almost we should affirm these things that we have while we have them. Especially not just to be like, man, remember how cool this place was? Just be like, we have it now, we're here. I started writing a couple years ago these short stories. I've always written short stories, but these were very short. They sometimes just a few lines. They were sort of lyrical, but there was no music. They were a little bit like songs, but they were not poems. I wanted to be very clear to everyone that I was not writing poetry. If you want, there is a seat or two up here, and there's room on the floor over here. If anybody wants to come up, come on up. I was not writing poetry, because at that point, I've been doing the fanzine for 35 years. It's going okay, but print is always a challenge, and having a long artistic career is always a challenge. It's not just going to keep getting better. You hope it gets better, but in a way, you hope that you figure out how to be better when it gets worse. And my circulation was still pretty good, but it was dropping a little, not precipitously. It was downhill, but just like a nice, easy coast. And so the thing to do, if your career is not in a dive, but just moving a little bit, it's slowing down, the thing to do is not to write poetry. This is not a career-saving move. Everyone knows it. So what I realized is I'm going to turn these things, these aren't poems, they're scripts for comics. Because I have a bunch of cartoonist friends. I gave it to my cartoonist friends. This is going to be great. Totally unforeseen career move. He's going to segue into a, graphic novel author with these, very small stories. But my cartoonist friends returned them in a week, and they said, these are poems. So I have a poem to read to you tonight. Just one biographical fact to know. There's two people who are the stars of the first stanza. It's Thule and Shule. Thule Kupferberg was co-founder of the Fugs. I was telling one person that if you happen to be in your early 40s and you haven't gotten around to starting a band yet, be like Thule. He's like 42. He's like, oh, I'll start a band. Okay, it's the Fugs, one of the greatest bands ever. So it's really not too late. Shule is Shulamith Firestone, very cool second-wave feminist. And later in life, she had some mental troubles. She was in and out of institutions, and she wrote really, really kind of achingly beautifully about the experience in institutions. There's room up front if you need. Come on down. There's an empty chair. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't worry about it. You're fine either way. That's Thule and Shule. This one's called I Love the Freaks. I like the girls with the bones in their hair, with baby dolls tied to the handlebars of their hoopty bikes. I like the guys dressed in skirts and rags like Thule, or Shule, still angry and crazy when all her peers had settled down. I love the unrepentant weirdos who won't ever fit in, with makeup running down their faces and bad teeth. I'm sick of the compromises, the looking more normal every year and paying someone to cut your hair. I'm sick of talk about last week's New Yorker piece, about your job, about the same books that everyone reads. I love the city, not the nightlife, but the real life, gritty and free, cheap food and burning needs that can't be dismissed or ignored. I like the cats with 6 toes and the people who are way too much and still want more. I love the pain. I dig the Jews. I love the truth printed in the little magazines. I like the Cubans at the diner and the members at the food co-op and going to visit my friends at the squats, because I'm still proud of the underground and setting ourselves apart from everything we hate and walking around late at night downtown with you. I love the freaks. I love the freaks. I love the freaks. Thank you. You gotta love them. So, I mentioned the food co-op in that poem. It's a members-only, 16,000 member food cooperative in Brooklyn. It's a very cool spot. I stopped by Wednesday on my way here, on my way before going to the airport to get some snacks for the flight. Was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Wednesday. And who should I run into in the produce aisle of the very cool co-op? Guy Picciotto. There he is. We know each other. Eventually, all old punks, anyone who's been around, you get to know each other. I told him I was coming here, and he told me about the Denver Fugazi food drive skinhead riot. Who was there? All right, one. Anybody else? You can throw a can at me if you want. But he said it was brutal. He said don't have a can drive if you play Denver. It sounded a lot, I was like, this is a lot more exciting than the Green Day show. But it was bloodier too, I guess. But I'm glad you were there, and it helps make a full circle out of this, and I can tell them, that there's one surviving member. Okay, so for those of us who grew up in punk and in the underground, in the counterculture, and those of us who are still growing up in it, I think it's very easy to dismiss our youthful idealism. It's very easy to make fun of, and it really is. There's a lot to make fun of. But I'm getting tired of hearing people say, well, you get a little bit older, things aren't so black and white, you have to make compromises. And I want to be on record to say, well, that might be bullshit. It might not be. You make whatever compromises you have to make. But I think that adulthood is really the time to take the high road. I think that we should consider renewing our vows. It doesn't have to be the same vows, but just trying to figure out how can we take the highest road, how can we be the most moral, and I lost my train of thought. Just to keep a guiding light. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing, it doesn't have to be in every way, but just to figure out how can we be the most moral, how can we be the coolest, how can we, be the most idealistic as adults. It doesn't mean shooting yourself in the foot. It doesn't mean taking a vow of poverty. If you want to take a vow of poverty, it might be a cool thing to do, but you don't need to. In fact, I think it's usually the opposite. I think if, it doesn't mean you're rigid, figuring out your strong sense of beliefs, whatever they are, and trying to step up to them as high as you can. It's very common, for it also to be said that, you have to compromise yourself. You have to, you have to sign to a big label. You have to do whatever. There's nothing necessarily wrong with those things, but this idea that you absolutely have to compromise your ideals and lose some of your dignity and prostrate yourself in order, to pay the rent. I just say, try it first. Try it first without doing those things, because who's telling you this? I'm like, is it the mainstream telling you this? Is this a message of fear? Is this a positive message saying, like, you have to compromise this? So I just want to, I just want to encourage people. And it doesn't even have to be about being morally upright or taking the highest road. To me, it's mostly just about, like, what's cool? How can we be the coolest that we can be? Not in anybody else's eyes, but for ourselves. Say you're on a major label. The moment that you stop creating a profit for the owners of the major label, you are dropped like a hot potato. That's just the deal. That's the deal you sign up for. It's not that cool. It's not that cool. I don't care if it's a big label, a small label. It's just not that cool. It's also not that cool to be on an independent label and have a record that sounds bad, that looks bad, and that no one gets to see. That's not that cool either. For it to be cool, there's a lot of wiggle room in between those two things. If your food is wholesome and healthy, but it is not tasty, that's not that cool. It's halfway there. If your band plays benefits and, is well-intentioned, but the music is not catchy or good, that's cool that you tried, but keep trying. aim for cool, And if your writing is, therapeutic to you, but it doesn't make sense to anyone else and it's not compelling, that's okay. You don't have to ace it every time, but try for cool. And in terms of the underground, the underground is not a perfect place. It's not great. No one thinks the mainstream is, though. The mainstream, of course it's, filled with rip-off artists and mediocrity. But if the underground is, then people are mad. People are mad. It's like the underground has let us down. The underground does occasionally let us down. But I do think that here we are, it's the underground, we're here, we should be working to be like, this is where the coolest stuff is. This is where the most experimental stuff is, the most cutting edge stuff, also a lot of crap. But if someone's looking for something, where is the coolest stuff? It's the underground. It's where it's going to be. It's got to be there. And that's our mandate, that's our challenge, it's kind of our responsibility. And it also will make all of us feel better staying in it, to be like, well, we have this cool thing, and it's important to give something for people to stay in it, just to be proud of. Okay, no more grandstanding, no more freestyling. We've got letters from the Cometbus mail room. We've got a local angle to start out with. I hope this person is here tonight. It's unlikely, but you never know. I've spent the spring going through my old 90s mail. People used to write a lot of letters. They still write a few, but I had from the 90s, you can't see that. 7 boxes, large boxes, crammed full of letters. And this spring I spent rereading them. Not personal letters, but letters sent to my magazine. And it was very weird. I reread them just because I felt the sense that I'd missed something the first time, and I had. They were really interesting. But now I never want to think about the 90s again, besides these 3 letters, because I've lived it twice. I lived it once, and then I lived it again this spring, and it's 80s, what we can talk about, anything in this century. March 1991, Dear Aaron. Dear Aaron, if you are with Green Day or anyone else in Denver or its suburbs, I can provide a warm floor, and 2 couches to sleep on, with food, Java, and shower. It is okay to smoke and drink, just don't fuck shit up. We can provide food, laundry, smokes, shelter, sleep, cool places, shower, shows, friends, good times, Java, music, okay to drink, cool bridges, cool rail yards, laid-back environment, telephone, vegetarian or meat meals, and last but not least, toilet paper. Very important. We would enjoy having you. From Just Another Band, making the Colorado scene a little better. P.S. Enclosed is $1. Go ahead, buy food. Is the person who wrote this letter in the house tonight? Ladies and gentlemen. No. Damn it. Well, that's okay. We have another thing to give away. Aaron, is it signed? It is signed, but wait. Don't, if you think you know who it is, if you think you know who it might be, don't blurt it out right away. We're going to move across the room and just say it out loud. If 2 of you get it, it's a 2-record set. It's the soundtrack from the coolest movie of the century, Turned Around. Man, gotta love it. It's a 2-record set. If 2 of you guess it, you can each have 1 disc. It's no problem. Any guesses? It's a person and a band. Guess either one and we're fine. Yell it.
What year did you say?
91.
Maybe George from Gore? The Fluid? The Fluid?
Taco Garden Records? No.
Okay, the band is Slow Children at Play. Who's the member? Who's the member of Slow Children at Play? Come on, you know it. You know it. Someone knows it here. Different band. They're from New Jersey, right?
Berkeley.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, it's a children thing.
Oh, that's okay. I know. I was already off on a tangent myself at Daydream. Well, we got to give away this record. Well, the person is Bert Charon.
I knew it.
Where is he now?
No, I did not.
I know, because we're going to his house, all of us, tonight, at midnight. That's right.
Did you take him up on his offer?
Well, it's taken me 28 years to get back here. That's the problem, is that I was here in 1990. I've been saving this because I'm like, that's a pretty good offer. Well, I didn't tape anything else under the chairs. Yeah, well, let me think about. I was hoping that was going to succeed for the record giveaway. I'm not sure how we're going to give away the record, but let's do the rest of the letters first. Thanks. We got to keep it moving. This guy up here, his time is no. I know. I was kidding. I appreciate it. I know. We are in the middle of the mail section, and we got some good ones. Dear Cometbus, that can't be your real name. I don't usually kiss folks' ass, but I owe you a world of thanks. I generally hate people and think they are shit, so you can be sure I mean everything I say in this letter. Because if I hated you like I usually do, then why in fuck's name would I write this? I buy your zine whenever I can find it. I picked up Double Deuce, and it made me wish I had dropped out of school and became an itinerant road punk instead of being a dumbass and joining the Navy. That was over a year ago, and I didn't even know what a zine was, but I wanted more. So I started buying the ones I could find and reading what they had to say. After a year or so of that, and listening to plenty of bands like Dead Kennedys, Exploited, Anti-Nowhere League, and Fear, I now realize that the military is a huge crock of shit, and only a fool would waste their time by enlisting in it. I get out in 7 months. At that time, I plan on starting my own zine, convincing other people not to fuck their lives up like I did, and living a punk way of life as much as I can. I've always listened to punk rock, but it was Double Deuce that started me down this road. I remember you talked about taking a horrible experience and writing about it so that it seems appealing to others. Well, being government property, spending weeks at a time underwater, and most of all, knowing that I am indirectly responsible for murder and suffering and all kinds of evil shit is pretty horrible. So I write about it as much as I can. Well, I guess I've made a jackass of myself enough for one letter. I realize it is entirely possible you could give my address out to all your friends, thereby making me the target for all manner of hate mail. All I can say is, please don't. I already know I'm a fucking warmongering pig, and a hypocrite, and a liar, and a coward. But I am really trying to repent my stupid ways. Please just accept my thanks and know that your work has made a difference in my life. hating my fucking self. Steve Watson. Wow, right? I wrote to, part of going through this mail is I'm writing to the people just to see, it's like, how are you doing? But I didn't get a response, I don't know. It could have been his parents' address, but no word from Steve Watson. But I'm rooting for him. Hi, Dr. Cometbus. Just thought I'd let you know about an incident that occurred in September. Well, we had to do book reports in English over something we read in the summer, and the only thing I had read was your Double Deuce book. So I did one on that, and the teacher got all interested because he hadn't heard of you and went to the store and bought a copy of it. He thought it kicked ass, so he loved me and got all interested in punk rock and shit. I mean, if that's what he likes, I don't care. But it kind of pissed me off and made me uncomfortable that my English teacher was asking to borrow my criminals records. So I dropped the class. I think there's a word for the uncomfortable pissed offness I felt. Maybe I'd know what that word was if I was still in English class. So, thank you for robbing me of my education, you chode. I really appreciate it. Oh, my girlfriend gets to write something now because she paid for part of the stamp. This is scrawled across 2/3 of the page. Retard beater's 7-inch sucked ass. I hate you. Okay, that was from Shannon. We're in study hall, so we're going to go back to looking at naked pictures on the computer. Jamal and Shannon, Carbondale, Illinois. Oh, all right. Who's the youngest person in here with a turntable? Do you have a turntable?
Yes.
How old are you?
I am 12 and I'm turning 13.
Hold on. How old are you? Sorry, 7? You have a turntable? Do you have a record player? All right, it's yours. I'm sorry. We'll get you something else next time. Pass it on.
You're a good sport, man.
What do we got? It's a reading. I got to read something that I wrote. It is from an old issue, and while I've been going through looking at my old writing, hold on, where'd it go? That's not good. All right. Anytime anyone looks at their old work, they're gonna have mixed feelings. But when I look at my old work, it's all right. I like some of it. I don't, not crazy about some. But what I find across the board is that I tried too hard to be funny. Tried too hard to be clever, to be funny, to sort of to be light, to be lighter, to give a little hook at the end. And all that is fine. Life does that on its own, though. I think you shouldn't, just from my own personal experience, you shouldn't force that. It doesn't age as well. I think when I look back at my old stuff where I didn't pull any punches, I let myself be absolutely as angry or as sad as I really felt, it holds up better. So that if there was any advice I would give for writers, it's just that, just the straight truth is best. Entertaining, you always think, you want to be entertaining, you want to be funny, but the straight truth is better. Holds up better. This one is from issue 38. It's from about 1995. I'm up to issue 58 now, so you can see I'm not moving at a wild clip. You know, they're inching along, one every year or two. I have a bunch of copies of issue 58 for sale afterwards for anyone who's interested. My goal is to try to make back some of the money that I spent on books in Denver because this is the best bookstore town I've ever been to, and I didn't expect it. I had no idea. Yeah. I'm going to have to pay for extra luggage now. So this is from issue 38. It is called I Blame You. The more I think about it, the more it makes me mad. How you came to our houses when you needed a place to crash, someone to talk to, some excitement, some sympathy. You sucked up our world, all the late night plans and angry bands, and our family that was more of a family than you'd ever had. But when it came time for you to make your own move into the world, you got a little single room with your girl and started acting like mom and dad. You cut us out and left us in the cold. Who do I blame when I come back to my town and there's not an open door to be found, not even a fucking floor? I blame you. When I think of the chances we took, the lengths we went to create something meaningful, something we could truly call our own, maybe it didn't add up to much more than a few dingy clubs, a couple filthy houses, some ideas and silly slogans about how to live. But we took all the inspiration and energy we got from the world and threw it back twice as hard. You came into it all wide-eyed and so hungry, and we kept on dishing it out. But you ate and ate until you'd had your fill and never even considered turning around and giving anything back. You watched us get tired, and instead of picking up the ball, you just let it roll away, so happy and content that you could tell the next wave you'd been there back in the day. You didn't have the guts or even the decency to kick our ass by doing something way bigger, way wilder, which would make what we did look tame. You couldn't even muster up one great band. Shit, you stopped dancing even before most of us did. Who do I blame when shows just aren't much fun anymore? I blame you. Well, you had your fun, but now it's the real world, not like our world, which I guess was something entirely different. Funny how when you're depressed or having trouble with your girl, you come back to our world, where everything doesn't have to be taken so seriously, where you can get trashed and soak in our houses. But can't you see, this is our only world, and we're stuck in it. A choice we made or a choice made for us long ago. We can't just come and go as we please, and sometimes, believe me, we wish we could. Who do I blame when eviction comes and there's nowhere left to go? When nothing seems like much fun and what we have is only a shadow of our former glory? When everything is falling apart and there's less options and less people to count on than there used to be? I blame you. Then I blame everyone else who came before or after you. And then after a while, there's no one left, and I have to blame myself. And I'm tired of blaming myself. And we've reached pretty much the end of our scheduled program. That went a little faster, and I probably spoke twice as quick as when I did the test version. Okay, well, I'm going to keep talking a little, mostly to ask questions, but I have one thing to say, which is the person who does the bookkeeping for Mutiny in the house, by chance? All right, well, I was going to give a round of applause for the bookkeeper, just because, while we're trying to take the high road, we also need to watch the bottom line. Mutiny has always paid their debts to me. It's not about money, it's about trust. When you make something, it's extremely important to have a feeling that there's somewhere to bring it. And not only is there someone to bring it, but if it doesn't sell, well, they don't owe me anything. But if they sell some, money comes back and I can pay the printer. I can pay for office space. A lot of businesses don't last. It isn't just because the money isn't there or the support isn't there. It's usually because someone isn't paying attention and paying the bills. So it's extremely important that the underground, not only we fulfill our obligations and we keep an eye on our debt, but we try to be something where a ripoff is not, the underground is not somewhere where that it's expected for it to be half-ass. It's somewhere it should be expected that there's a trust and there's a, solid effort. There's people make mistakes, that's okay, but the bottom line, folks. Questions. If anyone has questions, I encourage first the shy people, anyone who's nervous, feel like they might vomit if they put their hand up and speak in the public. It took me till I was 48 till I could finally do this, and this is actually my first ever reading in the U.S. Weird. Strange to say. I know. You asked me how the tour was going. The nurse back there, nurse in training. It's not a tour. The tour is Denver. So, and then now I'm going to go back, go back to my behind the scenes place. But to encourage you to speak from the back or from the front, and whoever has a question, try it. If you have a story, long comment, observation, just put it on paper, send it to me. P.O. Box is in the magazine. Send a stamp, happy to reply. But for now, let's just try to do questions, if anyone has any. Wait, hands if you don't mind. Okay, we're going to take the youngest audience member with the turntable. You have a question? That's okay. You want to whisper it to someone, and she'll say it?
Yeah, we'll work on it.
Oh, yeah, work on it. Okay, sorry, let's do it.
I'm just curious where you're living, where's your home?
I'm living in New York. It's great. I was never one of those people. In fact, I looked down on all the people who were thought New York was so cool, and they're like, I'm going to move to New York. I just ended up there accidentally. It's been great to me. So I've been there for 20 years now. Do you have a question? What's the question?
What was the first kind of straight edge punk scene like?
The question is, what was the first straight edge punk scene like? And I have to say I don't know because I wasn't there. I've only read about it, the same as everybody else. I will say that the X's on the hands did come from the Mabuhay Gardens, which was our hometown club for people like you and me at one point. When you're under 21, they would mark your hands, if you were a minor at the door, so you wouldn't sneak a beer. And that's where the X's come from. So that was the Bay Area, my hometown's contribution to straight edge. But other than that, we didn't do too well with it. But I'm actually coming around to it now. I'm a late bloomer in general. I am in fact straight edge now. Thanks.
What would you tell someone who's working on the third issue of their first zine ever? What would you who was working on your third one say, or the crew you say?
Or what?
What would you say now, or you when you were in the place I am working on your third issue ever say?
The question is, what would you say to someone who's working on the street lamp number 3? And my answer would be I have no advice to give. I offer encouragement, enthusiasm, and support, and that's it. I would love to see it. I will say if you have a hard time with issue 3, just do the best you can and we'll get toward issue 4, because that's, you get it, it does actually get easier. After 30 years, that's the thing. After 30 years, it gets easier, and then it gets hard again after 35. But don't. Yes.
What's the longest break you took in your art before you got back?
You know what? I have forgotten to give out these fanzines to the people who ask questions. So let me do that first. Yeah. Yes. It's a different freebie than from the other night. So in case you asked a question the other night, you still might want to ask again. Who else asked a question that I already answered? Okay. Okay. The longest, I took 2 3-year breaks.
Was it hard to get back after that?
No. No. I'm going to think for a second. This is the problem is, if you're a writer, the deal is I'm kind of a slow burn. I'm not a fast thinker. 20 years in New York and I can finally just order something fast. But for one thing, there's this idea, you have a question, there's an answer for it. A lot of the time, it isn't even the case. Things don't quite make sense. You're not still sure why you do things, and it takes 500 times writing it down, crossing it out before you understand it. So I don't understand my own process. I think last year I was attempting to quit again, very seriously, because it just wasn't doing for me what I want. So it's hard to tell. I think generally I encourage people to not stop. I think the continuing, even if you have to fake it a little bit, just the fact that you're in it, you're already in the water, but actually I've seen people, my friends who I just, I gave up for dead. I was like, they don't do anything anymore. They left, they moved to, the sticks. 10 years later, they come out like booster rockets. They're all over the map. They're producing all kinds of stuff. They rested up, and they have fresh perspective. I've always been, I think, maybe it is actually motivated by fear. And I'm like, I don't want to be a has-been. I don't want to be someone who used to do something, so I just keep doing it. But I do think that taking a gap sometimes is probably the healthier thing. Right there. If you could pass this back to him. Don't stay where you are. It's just going to be like a stage dive. All right.